Your $90,000 Patek Philippe Nautilus just dropped to $64,000, and it's still falling fast. While collectors are crying into their champagne, smart buyers are finally seeing the truth about these overrated timepieces. This crash is revealing which luxury watches were just hype all along. Y'all remember when everyone was acting like watches were the new Bitcoin? When every Instagram influencer was flexing their Daniel Wellington like it was a Patek? Well, reality just came knocking harder than a repo man. At 3 a.m. Bloomberg just dropped some numbers that got the whole watch world shook. Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet prices hit a 3-year low in 2024. We're talking about a 27% drop for Rolex and a devastating 47% plunge for Patek Philippe. That's not a correction, that's a crash landing. But here's the real tea. This isn't just about market conditions. This crash is exposing something the watch community has been whispering about for years, but nobody wanted to say out loud. Some of these luxury pieces were never worth the hype in the first place. The Patek Philippe Nautilus, the emperor's new clothes. Let's start with the big daddy of overrated timepieces, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, 5711. This watch had grown men camping outside authorized dealers like they were waiting for the latest Jordans. The retail price sits at around $35,000, which honestly sounds reasonable for a Patek until you realize what you're actually getting. It's a steel watch with an automatic movement. Steel. Not gold, not platinum, not even titanium. Basic stainless steel that costs maybe $50 to source. But here's where it gets wild. On the secondary market, these were selling for $90,000 and up. People were paying triple retail for a watch that, when you strip away the name and the hype, is fundamentally a well-finished sports watch with decent water resistance. Don't get me wrong, Patek Philippe knows how to make a watch. The finishing is beautiful, the movement is reliable, and the brand heritage is undeniable. But $90,000 for steel? That's not luxury. That's straight-up market manipulation through artificial scarcity. The recent price drop to around $64,000 shows the market is finally coming to its senses, but even at that price, you're still paying a massive premium for bragging rights. Richard Mille, the watch that broke mathematics. If the Nautilus is overpriced, Richard Mille watches exist in a parallel universe where money has no meaning. These pieces start at 6 figures and can easily climb into the millions. Richard Mille markets their watches as racing machines for the wrist, and I'll give them credit for innovation. The materials are cutting edge, the movements are technically impressive, and they've pushed boundaries in watchmaking. But let's be real about what you're buying. You're getting a timepiece that tells time no better than a $200 Seiko. Yes, it's made with aerospace materials. Yes, it can handle forces that would destroy other watches, but unless you're literally Formula 1 driver Rafael Nadal wearing your watch during a Grand Slam match, you're paying $500,000 for engineering you'll never use. The brand has become a status symbol among athletes and celebrities, which drives demand, but the actual value proposition is questionable. You're essentially buying a very expensive piece of wrist jewelry that happens to tell time. Hublot, the watch world's guilty pleasure. Hublot catches heat in watch circles like no other brand. They've been called everything from the most overrated watch brand to straight-up trash. But the hate isn't entirely fair. Hublot makes decent watches. Their Big Bang series has bold designs that stand out in a sea of conservative luxury timepieces. The build quality is solid, and they've actually done some innovative work with materials. The problem is positioning and pricing. Hublot prices their watches like they're competing with Patek and Audemars Piguet. But their heritage and secondary market performance tells a different story. These watches lose value faster than a luxury car driving off the lot. A new Hublot Big Bang will run you anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 depending on the model. But try selling that same watch a year later, and you'll be lucky to get 60% of what you paid. That's not luxury watch behavior. That's fashion watch economics. The brand has poor resale value because, deep down, the market knows these pieces are overpriced for what they deliver. They're good watches, but they're not $30,000 good. The Instagram darlings, Daniel Wellington and MVMT. Now let's talk about the watches that fooled an entire generation of young professionals. Daniel Wellington and MVMT built empires on Instagram marketing and minimalist aesthetics. These brands exploded because they understood something traditional watch companies didn't. They don't read watch magazines or visit jewelry stores. They discover products through influencers and social media. Daniel Wellington mastered this game. Their watches are everywhere on social media, worn by influencers who make them look effortlessly chic. The problem is, what's underneath that sleek marketing? A Daniel Wellington watch typically costs between $100 and $300. For that money, you're getting a quartz movement that probably costs $3 to manufacture, housed in a case that might cost another $10. The leather strap looks nice in photos but won't last more than a year of regular wear. MVMT follows the same playbook. They market themselves as disrupting the watch industry by cutting out the middleman and offering luxury aesthetics at affordable prices. But strip away the marketing speak and you've got basic fashion watches with markup that would make a luxury brand blush. The movements in these watches are generic Chinese or Japanese quartz units you can buy wholesale for pocket change. There's nothing wrong with quartz movements, but there's also nothing special about them that justifies the premium these brands charge. The Rolex phenomenon, when good becomes great, in price only. Rolex occupies a unique space in this conversation because they actually make exceptional watches. The brand has earned its reputation through decades of innovation and consistent quality. But somewhere along the way, Rolex became more about status than substance. Take the Submariner, probably the most iconic dive watch ever made. At its $9,000 retail price, it's a solid value. You get a proven movement, exceptional build quality, and a design that's been refined over decades. But good luck buying one at retail. The waiting lists at authorized dealers stretch for years, which drives buyers to the secondary market, where prices inflated to $15,000 or more for basic steel models. That's where things get ridiculous. Rolex created artificial scarcity by limiting production, which drove up secondary market prices and created a feeding frenzy among collectors and investors. Suddenly, people who couldn't tell a movement from a caseback were buying Rolexes as investments. The recent market correction shows this bubble was unsustainable. Rolex prices on the secondary market have dropped significantly, and buyers are finally questioning whether a 50% markup over retail makes sense for a watch that tells time no better than alternatives, costing half as much. The psychology behind the hype. Here's where my psychology background comes into play. These watches became overrated because they tap into deep psychological needs that have nothing to do with telling time. The Patek Philippe buyer isn't just buying a watch, they're buying entry into an exclusive club. The Richard Mille enthusiast isn't just buying a timepiece, they're buying a conversation starter that announces their wealth to everyone in the room. Even the Daniel Wellington customer isn't just buying a watch. They're buying the lifestyle they see on Instagram, the possibility of looking as effortlessly stylish as their favorite influencer. This is classic behavioral economics. The value of these watches isn't intrinsic, it's social and psychological. And when social trends shift or psychology changes, that inflated value disappears faster than ice in July. The alternative reality. The beautiful irony in all this is that some of the best watches in the world come from brands most people have never heard of. While everyone was fighting over Nautiluses, companies like Grand Seiko were making watches with finishing that rivals Patek Philippe at a fraction of the cost. While Richard Mille was charging $500,000 for carbon fiber cases, brands like Shin were making tool watches that could actually survive the adventures their owners put them through. The micro-brand revolution has given us access to Swiss movements, quality materials, and thoughtful design at prices that make sense. Brands like Christopher Ward, Baltic, and Frederic Constant are making watches that deliver on the promise of Swiss luxury without the inflated prices. Even in the affordable segment, brands like Seiko, Citizen, and Casio offer more innovation and value than the Instagram darlings that dominate social media feeds. The 2024 market correction isn't just about economic conditions, it's a reality check for an industry that lost sight of value in pursuit of hype. When Patek Philippe prices drop 47%, that's not just a market adjustment, that's a recognition that paying $90,000 for a steel sports watch was never sustainable or sensible. When Rolex secondary market prices fall 27%, that's the market saying the artificial scarcity game has limits. When Instagram watch brands struggle to maintain relevance as smartwatches take over the accessible market, that's consumers realizing they were paying premium prices for basic products. If you're in the market for a watch right now, this correction represents the buying opportunity of a lifetime. But don't make the same mistakes as the previous generation of buyers. Instead of chasing hype, focus on value. Instead of following influencers, follow your own taste. Instead of buying for status, buy for the joy of ownership. Research the movement, understand the manufacturing process. A good watch should bring you joy every time you look at your wrist, not anxiety about whether you overpaid for a trend. The overrated watches we've discussed aren't bad watches. They're just bad values at their inflated prices. Some are excellent timepieces that got caught up in market hysteria. Others are decent products that were marketed beyond their actual capabilities. But here's the thing about market corrections. They separate the truly great from the merely hyped. The brands and models that maintain their value and desirability through downturns are the ones worth your attention. The watch world is more accessible now than it's been in years. Prices are coming down, availability is improving, and consumers are getting smarter about value. This is exactly the time to enter the market as an educated buyer rather than a trend follower. Don't let FOMO drive your decisions. The next time someone tries to sell you on the latest investment piece or must-have timepiece, remember what happened to all those sure thing watches that just lost half their value. The best watch is the one that makes you happy to wear it, regardless of what others think or what the secondary market says it's worth. That's a lesson the watch world is finally learning the hard way. If you're feeling this deep dive into the overrated luxury brands, smash that like button and subscribe for more insider content that breaks down what's really happening behind the scenes in the luxury world. Hit that notification bell because when the next video drops, you'd be the first to know. Until next time, keep your game tight. Peace out.